Good evening, everyone. Welcome to API DIAS program. And you know that by series of programs called DIAS, the dissemination of information by API speakers, we conduct updating the physicians all over the country. And this time it's about nutrients in building immunity. We have seen how much essential was vitamin C during the COVID war, and till now we're not forgotten the use of this essential nutrient factor. So today's program we have three very good speakers and lot of content about the nutrients in different age group, the pediatrics, the adult and the geriatrics. But before that, we have a formal inauguration. I invite all our panel to the today's API Dash program and request our volunteers to play the video after that. I invite Dr. Kamlesh Tiwari, our President API, Dr. S. Arul Raj, immediate past President, Dr. Shashank Joshi, immediate past Dean and the Organizing Secretary of E-EPICON, Dr. Mangesh Tiwashkar, Honorary Secretary API India, Dr. Jailal, our today's chief guest and the President of Indian Medical Association, and finally, Dr. Ashok Nair, the Managing Director and General Manager of Abbott Primary Care. So all our panels, I request to join us, and I request to play the introduction video.
my dear brothers and sisters, first time with the help of Abbott Healthcare, we have started this live CME in 33 cities, which will cover at least 3,000 physicians and 13 hours of learning.
On behalf of the Association of Physicians of India, I take this opportunity for coming here to listen, learn and adapt.
Welcome you all to the API DIAS program. This year, we plan to spread the program to about 50 cities and reach out to more than 6,000 physicians.
Esteemed API member and my colleague, I have a proud privilege to welcome you all to API DIAS, a scientific platform in 2017. It is my proud privilege to announce that API DIAS has reached over 11,000 physicians in 50 major cities in second largest platform after Epicon.
Let me welcome you to the API DIAS 4th edition. These programs, we have decided to make this platform as a virtual program.
I can't hear anything.
Thank you. Thank you for that nice introductory video. We saw all our doyens starting from Dr. Muruganathan, Dr. Shashank Joshi, Dr. Siddharth Saha, Dr. Rajesh Upadhyaya speaking about the very interesting programs by API DIAS. You know, it's a collaboration between API and Abbott, which is meant to disseminate the information by API speakers. And without much delay, I'll invite the members of panel today to speak few words so that we can go further. To start with, our revered president of the big association, one of the biggest association of physicians in the world, the biggest in the Asian subcontinent, the Association of Physicians of India, now headed by Professor Dr. Kamlesh Tiwari ji. He took over last week in the API conference, and after becoming president, maybe it's the first API DIAS for Professor Tiwari. So I invite Professor Tiwari for his brief presentation. before you all. Professor Tiwari.
Thank you, Dr. Panda, respected Dr. Arul Raj, and my colleagues sitting over there. Actually, due to poor network problem, I can't hear you very much, but I know DIAS program in this country and abroad. I will congratulate about people for organizing this program because API is dedicated for CME and they are doing this CME throughout the country. So I, from core of my heart, congratulate them and wish a very happy and successful API DIAS program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Tiwari, for that nice introduction and the wishes. And as you know, from a offline program or a face-to-face program, we have turned virtual because of the COVID pandemic. And here also we have a huge number of viewers, which is going to touch 1 lakh and a huge number of programs during this pandemic time also. And as immediate past president, Dr. Arul Raj has been a pivot for API, fighting the COVID as head of the association and united all the doctors in the country for the purpose. I invite Dr. Arul Raj to share a few words.
Thank you, Dr. Panda, for a nice introduction. Thanks for Srinivasan for being the moderator. And thanks for our, President, Dr. Kamlesh Tiwari, for the nice words said about API DIAS program. And the esteemed faculties and Dr. Ashok Nair from Abbots. Friends, all of you know that API is science. API is for science. API grows science, nothing beyond science. We have the esteemed president of Indian Medical Association, our colleague Professor Jaya Jailal, who is heading the Indian Medical Association, which is the largest professional body globally. And that is, scheduled to be a trade union like BMA. But science is for with API, with every specialty organizations. As it was said earlier, in 2013, we initiated that, and we could reach to around 11,000 members face to face over about 4 years. When this COVID came, we were in a dilemma. Thanks to COVID, I always count on the positives of any negatives, and the positives of COVID we counted, and we made this API digital, reaching to the unreached. That is the 4th edition of API DIAS, which we are going through. Another 5, programs, we will definitely have that. And today we have an excellent, vibrant chief guest, Dr. Jailal. We will love to hear from him. And the topic of importance today is nutrition. Nutrition, ladies and gentlemen, has become a separate science. All of us know MNT, medical nutrition therapy, is a science of its own self. We felt the need for an immune modulators or immune enhancers during the COVID epidemic. Therefore, we have AP has chosen a nice topic, fitting topic on the immunity value of diet, and especially vitamin C. We have learned faculties to address on that. We have learned Srinivasa Murthy to be the moderator. I am sure we'll be able to upskill our knowledge and skills so that the care that we offer to the needy will be top on line. In a highly expectant society, it has to be. That is what API DIAS is doing. Having gone digital, it has crossed the boundaries. Today, our Muruganan is sitting there. Our president is sitting there. They are all in Tirupur, and we are all in southern side of it, and we are all linked very nicely on a digital platform. Not only the boundaries of India, boundaries outside India also crossed. Now API DIAS has gone entire Southeast Asia and trying to invade into Middle East. And we have agreed that before we close 45th session, with the blessings of our president, Dr. Kamlesh Tiwari, this API DIAS will become global. I wish this will happen. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir, for that nice introduction. And we know you are the force behind turning it to virtual and a digitally savvy president of API who has fought throughout the COVID. And with this, we'll move on to Professor Shashank Joshi, who is one of the master brain among the physicians and has kept us academically updated almost every hour, every day, and every opportunity. So Professor Joshi will be speaking few words in the context.
You see, it gives me a great pleasure that the academic wing of API is the Indian College of Physicians, and Dr. Arul Raj has taken and continued this API DIAS program, which used to be a physical program, which used to go to almost 80, 90 cities, towns, and parts of India to do skill building, capacity building. He has converted this whole knowledge dissemination exercise into a digital platform. The two main thirst areas which I want to talk is, one is the telehealth and telemedicine, which he very nicely said that today is the era to adapt and learn skills. We need to use technology right up to artificial intelligence in its best way. And second key is the patient to physician communication also is going to use the same telemedium. And therefore today the key is, the word is the tele. But at the same time, we should not get digitally intoxicated. And I always say in all my programs that you should do a 2-hour digital detox every day. At the onset, I really congratulate Dr. Arul Raj for wonderfully crafting this program, and my very close brother, Dr. Mangesh Tivaskar, very astute Secretary General of Association of Physicians of India, with the help of our team Abbott. Let me tell you something about Team Abbott. They have virtually had no influence on this program. This is a completely unrestricted grant from them, and they have allowed us to take topics which are useful for the practicing physician and the clinicians, so that they can not only learn, but whatever they learn, they can adapt it into their day-to-day practices. And that is so critical and vital in today's times. Also, what is useful is that we need to recognize that healthcare is soon going to get digital, and it is going to become a interactive digital platform, and which is what we are using today. And that is something which is very, very pertinent in the today's era. We also would like to make an effort to capture your feedback and translate it. But the whole aim, as Dr. Arul Raj very nicely said, is that we need to ensure that what you listen, you learn, what you learn, you adapt. And I hope that the various pearls of wisdom in different domains of medicine, which will be spanned over this year, you will learn digitally. And actually this outreach, which Dr. Arul Raj said, is actually going to reach out to many more people. I was the second president to continue this API DIAS program, but we could reach a finite number. But now with digital health, we can not only reach within India, but outside India. And I would request everyone to make this program into a larger domain so that more and more people can listen, learn, and adapt.
Faculties, API governing body members, galaxies and friends. It gives me colossal pleasure and feeling of gratifying pride to say that with the efforts of our dynamic, ever cognitive Technogate President, Dr. S. Arul Raj, we have kicked off one more session of API DIAS. We initiated the effort with physical one-day academic meetings, and then now we can successfully reach the truly unreachable through this digitalized revolution, which is now available to be used by all of us. I would express my momentous gratitude and thanks to the entire Abbott Healthcare, and their very efficient, vibrant team for their unconditional philanthropic educational support to this academic extravaganza. I would request you to register each time before you join in, as Maharashtra Medical Council has been generous and very big-hearted enough to accredit this program with the credit hours. Thank you very much again for sparing your time and spending your precious period with all of us. I wish you a very happy learning. Long live API.
Thank you, Dr. Mangesh. That was a very nice introduction of API Dash and setting the context. With this, we'll move on to our chief guest. And as has already been told by Dr. Arul Raj, Dr. J. Jayalal is the president of Indian Medical Association, is the chief guest for today's evening. So it's not only one of the largest medical association, it's a vibrant body to do so many activities and the doctors program throughout the India and throughout the world. So I invite Dr. J. Jayalal to API Dash on behalf of the API and request Dr. Jayalal for his presentation and to inaugurate the API Dash program.
Distinguished President of API, the past President, the distinguished past Presidents of Muruganathan, Dr. Shashank Joshi, Dr. Arul Raj, and other leaders. Indeed, it is a great privilege and pleasure for me to represent on behalf of Indian Medical Association and take part in this DASH program of API. I am personally a believer of knowledge as a power. Whenever we are able to give this knowledge to anyone, that is also going to help not only him personally, but also it is going to help the community as a lot. Whenever a patient comes to your doctor, when he is empowered with the skills and knowledge, and definitely that the benefit of it is going to be the patient and the community. That is the whole objective of anyone who is going to upgrade their skills and knowledge. I know for sure that the API is doing a great job in the dissemination of the knowledge to the community and society. And this era of this pandemic, much more the worst than the pandemic is the infodemic, which is now like it's circulating the society. There is no trials for that. So all the false and the right stages are spreading across. So at this time, it is a need for the academic organizations to come forward and give an updated information to the public in the right way. And not only for the public, also for our fraternity, so that it will be able to get an appropriate and the right answer and the right thing to propagate. I'm so happy to see the topics which you are discussing today. And extremely, it is very important, as though it looks a symbol for an API to talk about, but you are talking about the vitamin C and its impact in the society and how in various disorders where we will be able to give this vitamin C as a treatment modality, as a way how to advise the people to take it normally. I'm sure not only as for the treatment modality per se, as a surgeon, we believe firmly vitamin C plays a major role in the prevention and even the control of the cancers, which is now percolating and rapidly increasing in the society. The people who are used to vitamin C, people who are used to take the fruits and the vegetables which are rich in vitamin C, are having the positive effect on the cancer related to the GI tract or cancer related to the breast, and anywhere it is being well proved. It is one of the protective factor for any GI malignancy is a vitamin C. So we need to emphasize the need for that vitamin C to the public. And it is a very historical moment to see that animals and other structures, other living creatures can synthesize the vitamin C on their own. But unfortunately, really 40 million years ago, some mutation took place in the enzyme which is needed for the synthesis of vitamin C. The human beings, we are not able to synthesize the vitamin C. So it needs to be supplemented. It needs to be given in the routine diet, and which needs to be appropriately bioavailability has to be made rapidly equal for the people to utilize that. And another arena where we will be concentrating apart from the cancer will be on the wound healing. As a surgeon, we are very much fond of that because we know for sure the collagen, which plays a major role in the integration of any wound and is the healing process. Vitamin C plays a definite role. This vitamin C, though we are taking the food, sometimes the bioavailability of the vitamin C, depending upon the absorption and the excretion, may not be same. Especially we see the
Panda sir, you can make a comment. I think we have lost him. You just make a comment. We are trying to reconnect.
Yeah, I think Dr. Jalal has been disconnected. So we'll move on to the next presenter, next panelist, Dr. Ashok Nair, by the time he comes back in the interest of time. You know, the vision of API needs to be materialized. And for that, Abbott has come forward. And I invite the Managing Director and the General Manager of Abbott Primary Care, Dr. Ashok Nair, to say a few words.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Panda. Thanks, Dr. Jailal and Arul Raj. In fact, first, thanks a lot for taking out time for this year's API DIAS. And this is truly a transformational era in the history of the world and the medical community specifically. Dr. Arul Raj put it very clear, very successfully, that in every negative we saw the positives. And I also believe, like earlier we said, necessity is the mother of invention. I think the new age world, I believe now adversity is the mother of invention. So we see you all on the front lines and going above and beyond to ensure the best care for all the citizens of India. In fact, you are the true heroes. And as we continue to adapt to the challenges due to the current situation, we would like to thank you all for what you're doing. And we deeply value the work that you do and cherish the relationship that we have built with you. Now, a global challenge like COVID-19 requires the commitment and cooperation of everyone who has the ability to help address it. While no one knows with certainty how long this pandemic will last, but we all understand the importance of working together during these challenging times. And in this environment, everyone is doing the best they can keep the critical care going to those who need it the most. And at Abbott, we understand the role and responsibility we have towards providing life-saving and life-sustaining products. For more than 130 years, our mission has been to help people live healthier lives, and we continue to fulfill that mission. So Abbott is a global healthcare leader. We have more than 100,000 people around the world, and Abbott has been in the business for more than 130 years. We serve people in more than 160 countries with a portfolio of life-changing technologies that spans the spectrum of healthcare. We have leading businesses and products in medical devices, diagnostics, nutritionals, and branded generic medicines in emerging markets. In fact, generating sales in excess of 30 billion. And we are the India's largest healthcare company and second largest pharmaceutical company with a combined revenue of $1.5 billion. Now, Abbott's fundamental goal is to help people live fuller, healthier lives and maximizing their potential at all ages and stages of life. And we provide healthcare solutions across branded generic medicines, diagnostics, nutrition, and medical devices. Now, branded generic medicines help people in emerging markets to get and stay healthy. Our medical devices use advanced technologies to keep hearts and arteries healthy, to treat chronic pain and movement disorders, and to give people with diabetes a better insights, more freedom, and less pain. And our nutrition products build and maintain your health from infancy onwards. And our diagnostics provide information to guide effective treatment decisions. So Abbott has changed through the years. We have a set of core values that have guided our decision making throughout our history. The first one is pioneering. We see the needs first and deliver game-changing solutions. The second is achieving. We focus relentlessly on delivering for our stakeholders. Third is caring. We treat the people who depend on us as if they are our family. And the last is enduring. We know that everything we do today should contribute to a stronger tomorrow. We are committed to bringing the benefits of our trusted medicines to more people in the world's fastest growing countries. And we offer a broad portfolio of high quality branded generic medicine across multiple therapeutic areas: gastroenterology, women's health, cardiometabolic, pain management and central nervous system, and respiratory. And the diverse portfolio includes the world's leading medicine for pancreatic enzyme deficiency, progesterone hormone therapy, and vertigo. In fact, in India, Abbott Pharmaceutical is a $1 billion entity, which is split into 3 affiliates, basing the therapy coverage and products. And these are Abbott India Limited, the affiliate listed on the Indian Stock Exchange; Abbott Primary Care, the affiliate focused on acute care products; and Abbott Specialty Care, the affiliate focused on chronic care products. Every day, more than 18 million people in the world use our medicines. And in this business, we differentiate ourselves from pure generic competitors in many ways. Through our exacting quality standards, reliable supply chain, superior clinical science, broad product range, patient-centric innovation. We also offer services such as AK, a first-of-its-kind digital platform that gives patients and healthcare providers tools, tips, and resources to better manage people's health. And we offer market-specific portfolio that reflects the health needs of each region we serve, with special emphasis in core therapeutic areas where there is unmet medical need. Just briefly touching about Abbott's nutrition portfolio, you all know that good nutrition is essential to our health and wellness. And from infants to elderly, Abbott offers science-based nutrition and rehydration products to help make every stage of life a healthy one. And today, millions of people count on our trusted brands to help their children thrive, to provide the extra nutrition needed by aging bodies and people managing illness, or even to help people to get the most out of an exercise program. Our leading brands provide people with additional nutrients to help them enjoy the healthiest possible lives. For more than 90 years, we have helped give babies a strong start with our Similac line of infant formula. Beyond our Similac line of infant and toddler formula, we offer Pediasure, our complete balanced nutritional supplement that supports healthy growth and development. And for adults, Abbott offers our market-leading Ensure family of products, which are designed to help patients prepare for and recover from surgery. And at Abbott, we understand that we can help create stronger, more resilient, and healthier communities by focusing on areas where we can drive positive social and environmental impact. We work to increase access to care, creating solutions that remove barriers to live healthy lives. We engage with our communities, whether it is sharing scientific expertise or volunteering time to time providing nutrition meals to families in need, or assisting with preparations before disaster strikes. We are helping our communities to be more resilient. We also created a shared impact program that meets social needs by building our business, particularly in emerging markets. An excellent example of this is our work with dairy farmers in India. With partners, we provide training in farm management and finance and strengthen the milk collection infrastructure in a number of villages. Now, this made it easier for farmers to get high-quality milk and get paid it for it fairly, and also help to ensure a more sustainable supply chain for nutrition business. And we have leveraged expertise to deliver engaging educational programs in over 700 schools and community partnership reaching more than 280,000 kids so far. In 2019, we launched Future Well Kids, a program designed to educate and inspire middle school students to learn about the causes of chronic disease and adopt healthy habits to live healthier, fuller lives. Abbott people are passionate about the work. Our company can help them realize the full potential, build a secure life for themselves and their families, and make a positive difference in the world. In fact, Abbott values diversity in our product portfolio, in the markets we serve, and in our colleagues around the world. We encourage and support an inclusive culture throughout our company. We firmly believe that bringing a variety of perspectives to the table creates a culture of innovation, a mindset we believe is essential to solving the world's healthcare challenges. And we have programs in place from recruiting to career development designed to further strengthen our representation of women and minorities, especially in management positions. Abbott benefits and wellness programs are designed to reward performance while helping Abbott people lead healthier and more active lives. The last thing is Abbott has been named by Fortune magazine as one of the America's most admired companies every year since 1984 and ranked the #1 company in our industry for the past 7 years. To round up, we understand our responsibility to deliver an uninterrupted supply of products and services to help you deliver on this vital mission. While no one can predict the course of the ongoing pandemic, we are deeply experienced in successfully managing and minimizing disruption to our product supply. I assure you that we are taking necessary precautions to continue to deliver products and provide services that protect and improve people's lives, that are safe and are reliable and available. Thank you all very much for your time and wishing this conference a great success. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nair, for that good piece of information. Our MD and GM of Abbott Primary Care, and thank you for being with us in disseminating the information through the API speakers. With this, we have heard all our panel starting from our President, Dr. Kamlesh Tiwari, immediate past President, Dr. S. Arul Raj, Dr. Shashank Joshi, Dr. Mangesh Tiwashkar, Dr. Jailal, our chief guest, and Dr. Ashok Nair. And with this, we'll move on to our scientific program. And you know, the nutrients in building immunity is the focus, and mostly it revolves around the vitamin C and other nutrient factors. And we have Dr. Shailesh Gupta, Dr. Pramod Jog, and Dr. Mukesh Shankina as speaker in today evening. And the moderator, Dr. L. Srinivas Murthy, will be introducing the speakers. And let me present you Dr. L. Srinivas Murthy. Dr. Murthy is attached to the Life Care Hospital and Research Center, Shahakarangara, Bangalore. He is the former consultant at Fortis Hospital and the Gleneagles Global and Apollo Hospitals. He has over 2 decades of experience in both undergraduate and postgraduate teaching at B.R. Ambedkar Medical College, Bangalore, and faced successful US FDA audit in the field of research and faced world's first ever Canadian audit outside Canada successfully. He is the principal investigator in over 75 clinical trials and part of the landmark trial like Hope 3, Clarify, Begin, and Dwell 1 and Elisha. And he's a fellow of Royal College of Physicians, Edinburgh, fellow of Indian College of Physicians and RSSDI, has national and international publications and deliberations to his credit. The faculty at various conferences, you have seen him, known him, and very active academically, my good friend, Dr. L. Srinivas Murthy. I present you, Dr. Murthy, to moderate the rest of the session with the speakers with their very interesting topic. And I thank all the panelists for their participation. I pray them to stay back and be a part of scientific discussion. And I request Dr. Murthy to move forward by introducing the first speaker. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Panda, for a very kind introduction. I don't know if I'm worth the pricing, but thank you very much, sir. He's been a good mentor and friend to me also. And let us move on to the most interesting part of yet another API DIAS, and that's about our scientific discussions. Today's scientific session revolves around the nutrition and immunity, in particularly in the pediatric age group. And this is what we have done, though it's a API DIAS. We have our Dr. Jailal from IMA, and our Arul Raj sir, who's been the key person who converted this into digital, and our enthusiastic current president, Dr. Kamlesh Tiwari sir. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Let's move on to the immunity part. I'm sure all of you will agree, the COVID era has taught us that the most important point in our entire life is health, and to protect the health, the immune boosters, I think, done a lot of business without prescriptions in the COVID era. I'm sure all of you will agree, especially the vitamin D3 and vitamin C in this context. So today we have a very interesting topic about the nutrition and immunity, the role of vitamin C, and the pediatric infections and immunity, and how do we cater, because that is the future generation what we have to protect, and that is what we have survived through the COVID era. And to talk on the first topic, that is the pediatric nutrition and immunity, building the immune system through nutrition, and that is whether it's a natural way or we need supplements. And to answer this, we have none other than Dr. Shailesh Gupta. He's a senior pediatric consultant with over 28 years of experience. He's been a past secretary general of Indian Indian Academy of Pediatrics way back in 2012-13, and he's been IAP Neonatology chapter chairperson, and is also former president of IAP Mumbai branch. And the most interesting, he's been always academician. He's launched the IAP Neonatology Fellowship Program in various centers across the country, and he's founded and launched the IAP Neonatology Conference, the NeoCon. He's currently a senior consultant pediatrician at the Ashana Hospital in Mumbai. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Srinivas, for a very nice introduction. And before I begin, I'd like to thank the Association of Physicians of India and Abbott for this opportunity to speak on nutrition for children and linking it to immunity. So my talk is going to be of a general nature. a lot of it we already know, so it will be more like a recapitulation for everyone. But you may still find some points that strike you as important or new, and you may want to take them home with you and put them into practice. So I'm sharing my presentation now. Okay. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear
You
you,
are
but there is
audible,
an echo.
but there is some echo.
Echo,
There
yeah.
Can you try and remove that echo, please?
The console, please.
Shailesh, are you connected to two devices?
No, I think I'll try and change my
Yeah, either
earphone.
mobile or laptop you stop so that there will be no echo.
Yeah, just give me a moment, please.
Yeah, can you
Okay,
talk,
is
sir,
it
now?
better now?
We can check.
Is it better now?
No, still, sir, I think the console is saying remove your headphones and then you can try.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, no, it is worsened.
Yeah.
The echo is worsened. Can you put on the headphones, sir, and try?
Okay.
Yeah, now I think it's better. Can you start talking?
Yes. Can this
Yeah,
little screen
perfect.
can be removed on my? Okay.
Yeah, now you can go ahead, sir.
Okay, so we are going to be looking at pediatric nutrition and related to immunity, and we see how the immune system can be strengthened by good nutrition. I'm sorry. Okay. So the flow of presentation would be like talking about nutrition being as important as love for children, for their growth, development, and immunity. Then we look at the components of nutrition, the macronutrients, the micronutrients, and then we connect nutrition to immunity as to what components of nutrition work on which parts of the immune system. Excuse me, please. I think the echo is very disturbing.
Yeah, console, can you please connect and guide Dr. Shailesh?
I think I'll try and reduce my volume a bit. Is this better?
No, they say you're connected to two devices, sir. Is it?
There are no two devices, but I
You're
think
not
the
logged
echo is
in
down
two
now.
devices.
Volume a bit, and that's worked, yeah.
Okay, great. Go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry for the interruption. Right. Okay, what does nutrition mean for children? How is it important? This is something that I don't need to stress on. We are all aware that good nutrition is important for the growth, the development, good health, and a good immune status of children. And this begins very early in life, in fact, in the intrauterine life. So if a mother eats well and the child grows well intrauterine, we have a healthy newborn and then a healthy toddler and a healthy older child and healthy adolescent later. So good nutrition, or rather the scientific word to use is optimum nutrition, is important for a healthy growth, for mental development, for optimum immune function, and for faster recovery for many kinds of illness. And when this nutrition falls short of what is required, when it is suboptimal or inadequate or less in quantity, then the effects are that the height may be stunted, weight is less, muscle development is poor, the energy levels of the individual, the energy for everyday tasks, for learning, for playing, for interacting are all reduced. They fall ill more frequently, higher rates of illnesses. And it also affects the mental abilities, the cognitive abilities are poor, their social interactions are poor, they have difficulty learning in school, and they have difficulty in achieving their life's potential. And this impaired growth and development, which results from poor nutrition, can adversely impact all aspects of life and living. So what are the components of childhood nutrition? So we have these macronutrients, which are carbohydrates, the fats, and the proteins, which make up a large bulk of nutrients in food. And their main purpose is to supply energy for the bodily processes. I mean, the daily processes of walking, talking, living, and for those metabolic processes taking place inside the body. And of course, proteins, fats, carbohydrates all serve as building blocks for tissues and muscles. Then there are these micronutrients which are really required in very small quantities, but even a little deficiency of one causes systemic symptoms and signs and can affect the functioning of the individual. Very importantly, these micronutrients, which we will discuss in a little detail later, are required for the various neuromuscular and metabolic functions, and very important for maintaining the integrity and the functioning of immune systems. The next set of components of childhood nutrition after the macro and the micronutrients are the antioxidants and the phytochemicals. Now, the body creates these free radicals of hydrogen and oxygen, which are formed in response to various kinds of stresses that a body is subjected to. And these free radicals can be toxic for the cells. In fact, too much of free radicals can actually begin to kill cells and are responsible for cardiovascular illnesses, central nervous system problems, and so on later. So we need to maintain a balance, the redox balance in the body cells. So these free radicals, the excess, need to be removed from the body. And this is done by antioxidants. They're called scavengers of free radicals in the body. And antioxidants are important for the proper functioning of the immune system. Phytochemicals also have anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and anti-ultraviolet effects. And phytochemicals are these colors and the flavors in plants. So they are carotenoids, flavonoids, anthocyanins, etc. While they may seem of little importance, inside the body, they are of extreme importance. So deficiency of any one can affect the functioning of the entire body, especially functioning of the immune system, predisposing an individual to frequent infections and more serious illnesses. So how do the micronutrients, the carbohydrates, fats, and the proteins help an individual? Very quickly, I'll go through this because this is the information that's known to all of us. So carbohydrates are the primary source of metabolic energy, that is ATP, as well as the source of stored energy, the glycogen that is stored in the liver and muscle, and which is utilized when the body is starving or not getting adequate energy. Carbohydrates being the primary stored energy, have a protein sparing action. So they prevent proteins from breaking down and providing energy to the body. So the muscle continues to be preserved for a long time, even in the stage of starvation. And these complex carbohydrates called the dietary fiber that are not digested, but are very important for the optimal gastrointestinal function. They prevent the absorption of toxins, sugars, fats, and thereby they reduce the risk of diabetes and risk of cardiovascular disease. Fats, again, are a source of stored energy. In addition, the visceral fat kind of pads the internal organs and protects them from shock. And the subcutaneous fat provides insulation to the body. Very importantly, the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K are carried by fat in the body. And fat provides the essential fatty acids, the omega-3, the omega-6, omega-9, which are very important for human health. Fats form an important part of the cell membranes. They are part of hormones, of mediators in the body, neurotransmitters, and of course the hexanoic acid that's important for the central nervous system growth. Proteins are the building blocks of every organ system. They form the kind of the structure on which the various cells are eventually built up to form the organ systems. And proteins are the part of all cell membranes and the cell organelles that are contained inside the cells. They are enzymes, they are hormones, and the antibodies. And proteins are very important for maintaining that redox that I mentioned earlier. So they're important for maintaining the acid-base balance of the human body. Coming to micronutrients. So these are the water-soluble vitamins, the fat-soluble vitamins, the trace elements, and the minerals. Now, the water-soluble vitamins, importantly, are vitamin C and the vitamin B complex. A regular intake of these are necessary because they're not stored in the body or manufactured in the body. Vitamin B complex is an import of various energy metabolisms like fat metabolism, protein metabolism by acting as coenzymes. They're also antioxidants. They're important for neurotransmission. Folic acid is important for hemopoiesis, so RBC production, WBC production. They protect the skin, the mucosa, so they support the immune system. They're important for growth of cells, important for DNA formation. Collagen synthesis depends on adequate levels of vitamin C in the body. And we all know that vitamin C is a very important antioxidant, a powerful antioxidant, and it's important for the functioning of the immune system. And that is why during the recent COVID pandemic, everyone was eating a lot of vitamin C. The fat-soluble vitamins are the A vitamin, D, E, and K. We know their roles already. A is important for the health of the retina. It's also important for the health of the immune system. It's important for the reproductive system. It's important for growth of cells in the body. Vitamin D has a very important role to play in the health of bone, muscle, calcium metabolism, immune system. Vitamin E, again, is a scavenger of free radicals, a powerful antioxidant, and vitamin K is important for the clotting mechanism. The important minerals are calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, sodium, potassium, and we all know calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium are very important for bone growth, for forming the skeletal framework, and for muscle function. So these minerals act as cofactors in various metabolism, in acid-base balance, in functioning of enzymes, neuromuscular transmission, and in the formation and expression of DNA and RNA. Sodium and potassium are needed for maintaining the cell membrane potential, so very important for the cardiovascular, the hemodynamic system. And calcium and phosphorus are important for the functioning of the parathyroid hormone. Trace elements, the very important ones are iron, manganese, copper, zinc, selenium, fluoride, chromium, and iodine. Now, iron is a part of hemoglobin, of myoglobin. It's a part of thousands of enzymes in the body, and it's very important for the functioning of the immune system. Zinc acts as a cofactor in various metabolic processes. It's important for growth of tissue and repair, important for immune functioning, very important for wound healing, and important for the reproductive system too. Copper, again, is a cofactor and important for hematopoiesis, for immune system, for brain growth, for the skeletal system, along with calcium and phosphorus. There are also other trace elements that support the immune system. How does nutrition support or promote immunity or boost immunity? Let's look at the role of carbohydrates. The glucose, just as it provides energy for all components of the body, glucose provides energy for the immune system, the functioning of the lymphocytes, the macrophages, the neutrophils, and all of the immune cells. And when we have stable blood glucose levels, it reduces the body's stress response to bodily stresses and moderates the undesirable mobilization of immune cells. Water-soluble polysaccharides and polysaccharide protein complexes, they enhance and activate the immune responses in macrophages and in our complement systems. Combination of carbohydrates and fatty acids, so-called fatty acid glycosides, available from some fruits, they inhibit inflammation, decrease interleukin-4, and increase gamma interferon in the body. What's the role of proteins in promoting immunity? Now, proteins, or actually amino acids, are crucial. One, for the activation of T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes, macrophages, and natural killer cells. Two, for the production of cytokines, antibodies. Three, for lymphocyte proliferation. And as mentioned earlier, for maintaining the cellular redox state. And very important for gene expression. Protein malnutrition has detrimental effects on T cells, leading to opportunistic infections. And protein is very important, as we all know, for the post-trauma tissue repair. Arginine, glutamine, and cysteine are important amino acids that are beneficial to kickstart a deficient immune system. What do fats do to promote immunity? So your long-chain polyunsaturated fatty acids, the espinoic acid and the hexanoic, they assist in lymphocyte proliferation and activation, macrophage function, natural killer cell function, neutrophil function. The arachidonic acid, it's one of the essential fatty acids, is converted to prostaglandins, prostacyclins, and thromboxanes, and to leukotrienes and lipoxins. These inhibit the unfavorable functionings of the immune system and stimulate the good functioning of the immune system. The total fat intake and ratios of the various fatty acids also influence immune cell activity. And we saw a lot of obese individuals dying during the pandemic epidemic. And this is one of the reasons their immunity is low because of their excess fat in the body. A low-fat diet reduces illness by maintaining a normal immune response. And unsaturated fat increases T helper cell activity, while saturated fat reduces the immune responses. What do micronutrients do to promote immunity? In general, micronutrients maintain the immune barriers of skin and mucous membranes, and they support and regulate cell-mediated as well as innate immunity. They modulate cytokine expression and humoral antibody response. And they're very crucial to the differentiation and development of the Th1 and the Th2 lymphocyte subsets. If we look at the role of individual micronutrients in promoting immunity, vitamin A and related retinoids are essential for the differentiation of epithelial tissue and for gene expression. And vitamin A has an important role in humoral antibody response and cell-mediated immunity, supporting a Th2 anti-inflammatory response. Deficiency of vitamin A impairs innate immunity by hindering the regeneration of mucosal epithelial barrier that is damaged by inflammation. So besides the health of the retina, immune function in children is boosted by giving vitamin A. So those who get repeated infections should be supplemented with vitamin A, which the government does also. Vitamin E is a powerful antioxidant. It protects the membrane lipids from oxidative damage caused by free radicals. It's a fat-soluble vitamin, as I mentioned earlier, and it is found in higher concentrations in immune cells than in other body cells. It modulates T cell function by directly impacting the integrity of the cell membranes, by signal transduction, and by regulating cell division, and indirectly by affecting inflammatory mediators from other immune cells. So it causes reduction in the production of immune suppressive factors such as prostaglandin E2 in macrophages. Vitamin D has gained prominence in the last few years, and everybody has come to realize how important this molecule is. And it's a kind of ancient pro-survival molecule with immunomodulatory and anti-inflammatory potentials, and it regulates over 1,000 genes in the human genome. Very important for cell proliferation and differentiation. And the signaling provided by vitamin D modulates many inflammatory responses at several levels. It also regulates the differentiation of monocytes to macrophages. And it plays an important role in synchronizing the calcium oscillatory signaling to allow cell apoptosis during a stress response. Vitamin C, about which I think Dr. Jog will talk in greater detail later, is a potent antioxidant. It enhances chemotaxis of phagocytes. It facilitates apoptosis and clearance of dead pathogens in cells. And it helps in differentiation and proliferation of the B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. It enhances antibody levels. And of course, we've known the role of vitamin C in wound healing for decades now. Zinc is a gatekeeper of immunity. It regulates intracellular signaling pathways in both innate and adaptive immune cells. It's a good antioxidant that helps to maintain skin and mucosal membrane integrity. Very important for RNA transcription, DNA synthesis, and for cell survival. The trace elements, selenium, copper, boron, also have a role in supporting immunity. So selenium gets incorporated into these selenoproteins, which have a key role in redox signaling and antioxidant function. So these influence both innate and acquired immunity. And when there is selenium deficiency, that impacts negatively the immune cell activation, differentiation, and proliferation by affecting the calcium flux about which I spoke earlier. Copper also has a role in cellular immunity, including T cell proliferation and natural killer cell activity. So when there is copper deficiency, that reduces the interleukin-2 expression in human T cells. And copper deficiency also predisposes humans to infections and prolonged infections. Boron also induces lymphocyte proliferation, and it increases the release of nitrous oxide and cytokines. So we just saw how, in addition to providing growth and development to children, good nutrition also supports and maintains immunity. Now, what do we do with this information? How do we nourish our children well? Let's begin with the mother. So a pregnant mother needs to be provided extra calories, a high protein diet, B complex vitamins, iron, calcium, folate, vitamin D. All of these supplements should be given at the appropriate time when a woman becomes pregnant. These will ensure that the child grows well and has adequate stores of these uh, essential elements when he's born. Fetal growth monitoring will ensure that a child is growing well intrauterine. Once a baby is born, a normal newborn should be fed mother's colostrum at birth. And then there should be a transition to mature breast milk exclusively until 6 months of age. When I say exclusively, I mean that nothing else except mother's milk should be given. This includes water, honey, milk, formula, nothing should be given to a child. The mother should be encouraged to feed, and the health worker should help her to kind of hold the child, position the child, and feed successfully. After 6 months of age, homemade nutritious complementary food should be introduced. Wherever necessary, wherever deficiency is expected or suspected or is seen, supplements of B complex vitamins, vitamin D, calcium, iron, and zinc should be given at appropriate ages for adequate periods of time. There's some things that we need to avoid in ensuring good nutrition for children. One, do not introduce bottle into a child's life. Do not dilute liquid milk disproportionately. Introduce the semi-solid and solid foods that I mentioned at the right time, which is 6 months of age. Even a child's diet should be balanced. It should not be a high carb and a low protein diet or a very high fat diet. Okay. And it goes without saying that you should not give empty calories. Don't introduce children to sugary drinks like the colas and the juices. A child should be eating all family foods by 10 months to 12 months of age. A lot of this responsibility is with the mother and the father. A lot of times they are at a loss of knowledge as to how to go about feeding their child. And the role of the pediatrician or other health workers comes in to play at this juncture. So give these parents some of your time. Explain to them what are good foods, how to introduce them, when to introduce them, how to feed the child, how to encourage the child to eat, and so on. What is a balanced diet? Very simply, a balanced diet is that which provides carbohydrates, proteins, fats, minerals, trace elements, and all of the other things I mentioned earlier. So a good combination of grains, legumes, lentils, dairy products, green vegetables, non-green vegetables, pulpy fruits, citrus fruits, nuts, seeds, eggs, meats, and fish will form a balanced diet. India is multicultural, and we have so many cultural foods, cultural fads, but try not to be very strict with your cultural foods. You know, we are a global nation now. Our children are exposed to television, they're exposed to all kinds of advertisements on TV. So there are global foods available. So it would be wise to kind of integrate these global foods along with their cultural foods and allow them to eat what's good for them, what's good for their bodies, at the same time not wanting to eat what the parents are disallowing them to eat. Avoid refined flour, avoid refined sugar, excessive salt, and saturated fats. All of these are harmful in the long run. And a tip to feed children is that give frequent, small, several meals during the day. So like adults could eat 3 or 2 meals during the day, and, and keep their bodies going. Children have smaller stomach capacities. You can't stuff them with a lot of food at one sitting. So they need small amounts of food 5 or 6 times in the day. And that's the secret of good feeding. Meal times should be happy times, not times of conflict between the mother and the child. The mother wanting them to feed a particular kind of food and the child rejecting and wanting to eat another kind of food. If you force feed your child, you can be sure to meet with failure. So make meal times happy times and make the food interesting and attractive. Do not make bland, uninteresting looking food day after day. You do not expect your child to comply with you. So the above measures will ensure that a child will obtain all macronutrients and micronutrients essential for growth and development for an effective immune system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shailesh, for covering up an extensive topic in about less than 30 minutes. We really appreciate, and we would request you to stay back for the panel discussion in next half an hour, please. And let's move on now from Dr. Shailesh, who spoke about the nutrition and immunity and about the trace element, building the immune system from the childhood self, literally from the mother's womb it starts. And now move on to the another interesting topic with more concentration on vitamin C and its role in immunity in children, and understanding the essentials of the vitamin C in the immune system. To speak on this, we have Dr. Pramod Jog, who's got an experience of more than 35 years in the practice of pediatrics. He's currently the professor of pediatrics at the D.Y. Patil Medical College in Pune, and is also the director of MedPoint Hospital at Pune. Sir was the past president of Indian Association of Pediatrics way back in 2016. He is currently a senior consultant to UNICEF and also the chief editor of Times of Pediatrics. Over to you, sir, for enlightening us more on vitamin C and the immune system.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so my dear friends, we will be discussing about vitamin C and immunity in children, and we will try to understand the essentials. And as you can see, I have a plate of some vegetables, which you can see have broccoli, and there are colored fruits, which we call as antioxidants. And my wife just brought it from the market, and unknowingly she has brought a lot of stuff which has a lot of vitamin C. And basically, you know that vitamin C is nothing but all the citrus fruits and the tomatoes. And whenever you are bringing all this stuff from the market, please ensure that you wash it for 10 minutes, okay, and then use it. Okay, oranges, one orange is supposed to give you 77% of the daily need. And remember, the adults, that means the men particularly, they require about 90 milligrams of vitamin C. Women, they require 75 milligrams, plus if they're pregnant, they require 30 milligrams. And if you're a smoker, you require additional 35 milligrams. So, of course, doesn't mean that you can have vitamin C and then smoke. That's not the point that I'm trying to make. But you should know that it's a water-soluble vitamin. And all of you know that excess of vitamin C taken by mouth will be simply washed out in the urine. We all know that scurvy is a disease which results from lack of vitamin C. And there was naval surgeon Dr. Lind who discovered that there was gum bleeding in the sailors. And then in 1970, Paul was the one who gave a lot of information about role of vitamin C in flu. And then vitamin C came into the limelight. So it has quite a few functions in relation to the immune system. And what I would like all of us to first understand is that the immune system in the body is the one which has 3 levels. So imagine that you are staying in a bungalow and outside there is a big door which is usually locked at the night time. That is the barrier. Okay, so in the body there is anatomic and physiologic barrier. That is the first line of defense, like the skin and others. So that is something very easy to understand. But the main parts of the immune system are the innate immunity and the adaptive immunity. What do you mean by that? If you see in this diagram, you will find that the innate immunity consists of cells in the blood. Like for example, the eosinophils, the macrophages and neutrophils and so many others. While the adaptive immunity is the one which mainly involves T cells and the B cells, and we are going to come to that. So this innate immunity, it exists before exposure to pathogen. That means suppose if I am attacked by the COVID-19 virus, I will be protected by innate immunity. That means before COVID attacks me. And it's a rapid response within minutes. It has no memory and doesn't confer any long lasting immunity. And that is the initial response to the microbes. And there is elimination of the damaged cells and there is initiation of the process of the tissue response and the repair. Now, if you see in this diagram, you will find that the cellular innate immune system involves all the cells in the blood. All of us know about the granulocytes and the agranulocytes. And you can see on the left-hand side that there are mast cells, there are eosinophils, there are basophils, these are granulocytes, okay? And there are monocytes and macrophages. And on the right-hand side, you'll find quite a few colored cells with a nucleus, okay? So they are the ones, these are all basically lymphocytes. And lymphocytes are of different types. You know, they are natural killer cells, the dendritic cells, and so on and so forth. You need not go into the details of this. But what you should remember is the innate immunity is the one which is present before the pathogen attacks. While whenever there is an attack by some foreign pathogen, then the immune system of the body will recognize the antigen, okay, recognize the antigen, and it will try to eliminate that particular organism. Also, if that organism attacks again in future, there will be an anamnestic response. That's the second encounter with the same pathogen. The immune system will mount a fast and an intense response. So that is the adaptive immunity, also known as the acquired immunity. And that is divided into two, humoral and the cellular one. The humoral one is related to the antibodies and the cellular one is called as the cell mediated immunity. Let us say, if I pass out MBBS, then the basic knowledge of MBBS is nothing but the innate immunity after learning for all those 4.5 to 5.5 years. Now once I pass out, there are two choices in front of me. I can either join the medical college and become a teacher, so that's a T cell immunity, or I can become a businessman, that's the practitioner, that's the B cell immunity. Okay, now whenever you get B cell immunity, you have nothing but production of antibodies, and these antibodies are of various types. And T cells are the ones, these are the ones they give you the cell mediated immunity, and we'll see in a minute. So if you look at the adaptive immunity, the T cells, they mediate the cellular response, okay, and they control the intracellular infections, they control the tumors, while B cell mediated humoral immunity controls the extracellular pathogens and it mediates the allergy and hypersensitivity. Remember that. And both of them cooperate for an effective immunity. And you need not go in the details because immunology, it's a branch by itself. I will just elaborate the role of vitamin C in all this. You should remember that vitamin C is an amazing vitamin, and the basis of the function of vitamin C is related to what is called as antioxidant. I will just tell you some important points because it's a high level discussion wherein you need to concentrate a bit. Remember, in our cell, whenever we look into the cell,
for production of energy. You know that the energy is stored in the ATP, okay? And these ATPs are nothing but the powerhouses of energy or the battery of energy. What does it require? It requires oxygen and nutrients. So both these, they enter into the cell, and within the mitochondrium, all these activities are going on. What happens is, during this process, there is involvement of protein complex 1 and protein complex 3, which are very important. And during the movement of the electrons, some of the electrons, they escape, okay? And the oxygen gets an additional electron and then becomes the imbalance. Basically, imagine, I will give an example of a disk which has two balls on either side. When there are two balls, the disk will move in a proper way without any imbalance because there are two, one on one side, one on other side. But if you remove one electron, then the disk will start wobbling and the nucleus will wobble and the cell proteins and other structures will be damaged, okay? And the electron, the single electron, will try to get an additional electron by damaging the neighboring cells, okay? This is exactly the concept of what is called as the reactive oxidation stress, okay? So this is reactive oxidation species, ROS, ROS, okay? And this is something which is damaging. This is damaging. And vitamin C particularly has a function in relation to this. So if you understood this concept, please remember that vitamin C is an electron donor. So whenever there is only one single electron, being an antioxidant, it will give an additional electron and bring the balance back. This will happen in the epithelial cells. This will happen in the epithelial cells of the lung. It will happen in the connective tissue collagen of the skin. This will happen everywhere. This is in connection with the cells in general. And that's why you can see I have written that the antioxidant-oxidant balance is critical for the immune cell function. And this is the reason why the integrity of cell is maintained. You can have another example. Now the T cell and the B cell, which I told you, these immune cells, basically, they also have H2O2. These are the peroxides. They are very, 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 very reactive. And these peroxides will destroy the pathogen which has entered into the immune cells. However, when the H2O2, the peroxide, they destroy, they also have the ROS for the others, okay? That is the reactive oxidation species for the other ones. And this is the reason why there is damage. So functioning of the immune cells. So what I have tried to tell you is that during production of energy, production of ATP, lot of oxidative stress is there. During immune cell function, there is lot of this particular ROS. So remember that vitamin C is required at this particular level. And if you see in the immune system, you can see that there is also an additional function of vitamin C, and that is the down regulation of the pro-inflammatory interleukin gene. I will come to that in a minute. You can also see that in the epithelium, I just mentioned about epithelium, it is actively accumulated in the epidermal and the dermal cells. So whenever we look at our skin, the toughness of the skin is dependent on vitamin C. So it maintains the tension. It also prevents the oxidation of the skin. I already told you about the reactive oxygen species induced damage. Okay, so vitamin C protects. It prevents the loss of moisture from the skin and helps in skin generation and shortens the wound healing. And Shailesh already mentioned about it. Now, remember, vitamin C accumulates in the white cells. Basically, white cells require vitamin C. And if you have daily intake of 100 milligrams in a day, this concentration is maximum. Okay, and vitamin C helps to regenerate the cellular and the membrane antioxidants. Now, if you look at the role of vitamin C in the phagocytic function, see, when the pathogen enters, the neutrophils have to migrate so that they engulf the pathogen and then they phagocytose, they engulf the microbe. For this movement, vitamin C is required. Okay, again, here during this process, there is reactive oxygen species generation and killing of microbes. But when this occurs, at the same time, other parts also get damaged. And that is why you have to supplement vitamin C. And vitamin C also supports apoptosis. What is apoptosis? That is programmed cell death. I will come to it in a minute. So whenever there is deficiency, there is a problem. The neutrophils, they fail to undergo the morphological changes, and it is not recognized or phagocytosed by the macrophages, and there is necrosis of the neutrophils and of the surrounding tissues. Now, all this process leads ultimately to cell death, but then vitamin C is required for this particular programmed cell death. Now, you can now understand that in case of innate immunity, vitamin C has acted as an antioxidant because it's an electron donor. It has also enhanced the motility of the neutrophils and enhanced the phagocytosis and microbial killing and facilitated apoptosis and clearance. There are new terms which are used, which is called as netosis, which also refers to this. Now, in adaptive immunity, I told you that in T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes, vitamin C helps in the development and the maturation of the T cells and the B cells and protects the immune cells from the oxidative damage. I already told you that the oxidative damage in immune cells is related to the peroxides, which are very, very reactive. Okay. And in the COVID pandemic, we have seen a lot of discussion about the IL-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha. And these are the pro-inflammatory cytokines. So we don't want these cytokines because they are going to increase the inflammation beyond a limit. And vitamin C modulates the intracytoplasmic production of these IL-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha. Okay. So the action on the adaptive system is basically for differentiation and proliferation of T and B lymphocytes, enhancing the antibody levels and modulating the cytokine production. It also decreases the histamine levels, and that is through the action on the mast cells. So my dear friends, remember that vitamin C, as I told you, it's an amazing vitamin. I have not spoken much about its role in relation to collagen, which I must mention. See, in the body, there is pro-collagen, and it hydrolyses to collagen. And this particular function requires vitamin C. So in case if you have vitamin C deficiency, then there will be the reactive oxygen species, which will be damaging to the other cells. Number two, there will be a problem which will be related to the immune cells. There will be problem related to infections, the epithelium of the lung. So there is more proneness for infection, and also the barrier function of the skin, which will be affected. And of course, because of all this, there will be bleeding from the gums because the problem will be related to the connective tissue. So at various levels, vitamin C will act, and that is why it has a tremendous role in the immunity of the body. This discussion is little of a higher level, but it is important because otherwise everyone knows that vitamin C is a water soluble vitamin. It is available from the fresh fruits and others, but the exact meaning of the word antioxidant and the ROS, the reactive oxygen species, has to be understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your very lucid lecture on explaining the immunity. I think we definitely learned basics. It was something like a physiology class, and we really appreciate and we recognize that you are a true professor who made things very simple and understandable. I request all the delegates to post their questions. Already we are receiving some questions. Please do post your questions related to any topics. I mean, so far the two lectures what we have finished already, and now finally we have about the pediatric infections and the role of immunity. The most common worrisome problem for any parent is they're looking at their own child getting into problems, especially the infections part, and that is the most I think toughest job for any doctor to treat the parents, not the children, but the parents. I think to handle this, we have Dr. Mukesh Sanklecha, who's a senior pediatrician with over 28 years of experience. He's been a senior faculty for postgraduate teaching and training at the Bombay Hospital in Mumbai, and he has got extensive experience as an honorable speaker at various national and international forums, and he's got more than 50 publications to his name, and he's worked actively in the pediatric infectious diseases and pediatric pulmonology. So he's the right person to talk about the pediatric infections, the role of immunity, and how we can best save our children to get into this, especially the recurrent infections in the pediatric age group. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Murthy, for that wonderful introduction. And an initial thanks to Abbott and Diksha for having given me this opportunity It was really a pleasure to hear Mr. Ashok Nair, the medical director of Abbott India, who actually brought out the wonderful work that Abbott has done internationally and as well as in the country. And we hope and pray that Abbott continues the excellent work that it has been doing. Can I have the first slide, please? Next slide. Pediatric infections and immunity is actually a very complex interplay. And what we'll cover in the next 20 minutes, we'll talk about common pediatric infections and their burden. We'll talk about how it's a rather vicious cycle between infections and nutrition. We'll try and see how to break this vicious cycle into a virtuous cycle. We'll present some clinical data, and finally we'll do a quick case study, because I have a firm believer that unless you actually discuss a case, the talk remains too theoretical. Next slide, please. We all know the common infections that we see in pediatrics. In the respiratory tract, you may have upper and lower respiratory tract infections. You may have a full-blown pneumonia. You may have tuberculosis. In the gut, you may have gastroenteritis by viruses or bacteria, or you may have diarrhea by more complicated organisms. For example, parasites in HIV or a fungal infection. When it comes to the respiratory tract and the upper respiratory tract, you may have acute and chronic suppurative otitis media, tonsillitis, pharyngitis. When it comes to the miscellaneous group, you have malaria, dengue, and worm infestation. And finally, when it comes to viral infections, examples like chickenpox and measles, as well as viral infections like mumps. Next slide. Of children are actually at risk. Actually, all the children are at risk. But if you look at newborns, they are obviously at risk because their immune system has not fully developed yet. Infants are at risk. One, because they put everything in their mouth. So the oral infections go up. They really clean their hands. And what is important is that infants have also been recently exposed to the outside environment, be it in the playground, be it in the daycare center. So their exposure to bugs has gone up. Obviously, older children and adults, because their hygiene is better and they have become more immune tolerant because of a better developed immunity over a period of time, are less at risk for infection, but still, they are still prone to infection. Next slide. What is very interesting is that you have a basal energy requirement. And the moment there is an infection, be it acute or chronic, the requirement of energy dramatically goes up. What is interesting is that a single degree rise of fever will increase the basal energy requirement by as much as 13%. And what is interesting is that when there is a infection with fever, be it acute or chronic, the resting energy expenditure can go up by as much as 32%. So that is how chronic childhood infections can thus lead to a protein energy malnutrition and micronutrient deficiencies. So what nutrition was apparently adequate in a well child suddenly becomes inadequate in an unwell child. Next slide. It is a rather vicious cycle. Infections lead to poor nourishment or sometimes even malnourishment, because obviously the infected child has a poorer appetite, he will absorb food less better, and his basic requirement of food, macro and micronutrients both goes up. And undernutrition and infectious diseases share a very tight relationship in a way that is self-reinforcing. And we all know that childhood episodes of diarrhea, pneumonia, and measles are aggravated by undernutrition. We find that children who are already borderline nourished go into malnourishment with episodes of infection. Next slide. So there is a vicious cycle of infection and undernutrition. We have undernutrition, which brings down the immunity and increases the risk of disease. You have an infection which occurs, which by itself increases the energy requirements and propagates the undernutrition even more. And then the child can become temporarily undernourished because of infection due to increased requirements. And this puts the child at risk of other infections until a healthy nutritional status is attained once again. Next slide. So to reinforce this concept of a vicious cycle, again, you have poor nutrition, low immunity, risk of disease. He develops an infectious disease. Automatically, because of the infection, child's appetite is poorer. He has poorer utilization of the food he takes. And finally, his requirement of not just calories, but all kinds of micronutrients goes up. So undernourished children are not only more susceptible to falling unwell, but their disease is more likely to be more severe and more fatal. We all know the malnourished child who gets a pneumonia, the chance of him developing a more severe pneumonia is more, and the child of him dying because of a pneumonia is even more. We all know that mortality due to various major infections in the developing world are much higher than mortality due to similar diseases in the West, simply because children in the developing world are more malnourished and hence they tend to find infections much poorer. Next slide. The magnitude of the inflammatory response and the subsequent high serum levels of inflammatory mediators impacts the micronutrient status in the body. So we keep talking about macronutrients, the proteins, the fats, and the carbohydrates. Remember that though micronutrients are so named not because the requirement in the body is less important. They are only called micronutrients simply because they are required in very small quantities by the body, but they are in no way less important than your fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. So we have thiamine, we have the other B complex proteins, we have vitamin A, E, and the center stage of today's talk, vitamin C. You have selenium, you have zinc, you have copper, and you have iron. Next slide. How do you break this vicious cycle of poor nourishment and infections and convert it from a vicious cycle to a virtuous cycle? One obvious way that we all pediatricians do all the time is we use vaccines. Vaccines are very important components of breaking this cycle. So we use live vaccines like measles, mumps, rubella, varicella, zoster, yellow fever, rotavirus, the oral polio, BCG, typhoid, and you have killed vaccines like diphtheria, tetanus, polio, Hep A and B, rabies, influenza. Next slide. But equally important is the role of the pediatrician and the physician in enhancing the effect of vaccines by some natural ways, by building both the innate and the adaptive immune response. The concept of innate and adaptive, I think Dr. Zog has brought out very well. How do we do that? We replenish micronutrients, vitamins such as vitamin C, vitamin A, D, E, and minerals such as iron, zinc, copper. We also know from what Dr. Zog said is that vitamin C and vitamin E are important antioxidants that work across cells to protect them from oxidative stress. And what is interesting is there is a very important interplay between C and E. Vitamin C also helps in regenerating vitamin E. So there are multiple roles. I remember when I was a medical student, just like the role of vitamin D was just a vitamin, we now know that it has so many various effects. It is a hormone, it works on virtually every organ. So also, I think we're just discovering what additional roles vitamin C has in the body. Next slide. If you look at some clinical trial data, next slide. Zinc and vitamin C deficiencies have been associated with very poor pulmonary function in children with persistent asthma. I do a lot of pediatric pulmonology and treat a lot of pediatric asthma patients. And when you find that a patient with asthma either is not responding to medication or is not improving, you tend to look at various other aspects. This may mean compliance, whether it's using the device correctly, but you'll also look at the micronutrient status. Is this vitamin D status okay? Is this zinc levels all right? Does he require supplements of vitamin D? So this study showed us that there is very poor pulmonary function in children with persistent asthma. Next slide. And when they studied these children, they found that all these asthmatic children had zinc deficiency. Almost 2/5 of the children had vitamin C deficiency, and reduction of zinc was associated with poor pulmonary function, and reduction of vitamin C was associated with more severe asthma, airway obstruction, and eosinophilic airway inflammation. So we are yet to discover various aspects of vitamin C, and this is just the beginning of our journey with vitamin C. Next slide. Now, unless I talk about a case study, I fear that my audience will actually go to sleep. So I decided to put this case study, next slide. And this is a case that you and I have seen time and again in our everyday office practice. Whether you are an adult physician, whether you are a pediatrician, or whether you're a general physician. So this 2-year-old boy comes with recurrent infections every month. He has needed several courses of antibiotics in the past few months. And the mother is obviously concerned. She asks me these 4 questions. Is his immunity low? Are some investigations required? Does he need medications to boost his immunity? And does he need some supplements? So how do I evaluate this child in everyday practice? I will ask myself 4 or 5 questions. Next slide. The first question I ask myself when this mother asks me these questions is it an upper respiratory tract infection or a lower respiratory tract infection? Has this child got 2 or 3 pneumonias in the past few months? Or is it just a cough and cold of the upper respiratory tract? Next slide. Why is this question important? Remember that children who are younger than 6 years can have as many as 6 to 8 colds per year. 1 per month in the monsoon and immediately after it during Diwali. And they can go on for as long as 2 weeks. These kind of upper respiratory infections are commoner in daycare and primary school because children come in touch with children. In fact, pediatric practice is dramatically reduced ever since the COVID epidemic started and children stopped going to school. Older children and adults average about 2 to 4 colds per year lasting 5 to 7 days. These episodes become longer in smokers, be it the active smoking or passive smoking. So that is the first question I ask. If it's an upper respiratory tract involvement, I'm not too worried. Next slide. The next question I ask myself and the mother is there a family history of allergy or other allergic manifestations in the child? The mother has asthma, the father has allergic rhinitis, then this might be allergic recurrent coughs and colds. The child has had atopic eczema as an infant, higher the chance that these recurrent episodes may be allergic in nature. Next slide. We all know about what is called the allergic march. The small infant who's prone to allergy gets eczema, then it's food allergy, then they have rhinitis, and the older child has asthma. So you ask the parents, does the father or mother or the grandfather or grandmother have allergic rhinitis? Do they have asthma? Did this child who's right now with you have atopic eczema as a small child? If the answer to any one of these is yes, there is family history of allergy, then these recurrent episodes may be allergic in nature, in which case your approach is totally different. Next slide. The third question you ask yourself and you ask the parents are there any red flag signs? Is this child failing to thrive? You plot him on the graph, see whether he's losing weight. You have a child who's thriving well but getting coughs and colds repeatedly, you're not too worried. Does the child look very sick? Is there any finding like clubbing, cyanosis, hepatomegaly, some cardiac murmur? Is there a consanguineous marriage? Is there a family history of tuberculosis or some inherited condition? So your third question is, are there any red flag signs? Next slide. You go on to then your clinical examination and investigations. Do you think there is any vitamin deficiency? Do you think he has rickets? He looks anemic. There is conjunctival xerosis. There is angular chelosis. There is alopecia. If you suspect one of the vitamin deficiencies, you ask for vitamin D levels. You may ask for a ferritin level to diagnose iron deficiency. You may empirically give vitamin A. You can ask for zinc levels. Next slide. Next, you look at clues on investigations. Is there an abnormal X-ray? Do you see a large heart? Do you see some chronic pulmonary condition? Are your micronutrient levels abnormal? Is your zinc level low? Is your vitamin D level low? Is your ferritin level low? Are there suggestions of allergy in the family? Is there any multisystem disease? Or are there multiple organ infections? Next slide. So the moment you have multiple organ infections, or if you have unusual frequency, he's had 2 pneumonias in a year or more than 3 in a lifetime. There is an unusual site of infection, the brain, the liver. There is a liver abscess, there is meningitis. Unusual severity, a severe pneumonia, a severe meningitis. Unusual response, the child is not responding adequately to your therapy. Or an unusual organism, you grow girovesi, then you think of HIV. If you have an unusual frequency, site, severity, response, or organism, you suspect immunodeficiency. Next slide. So when there is nothing, then what do you do with this mother and this child? First, you reassure her that this is common with children at this age. You supplement deficient vitamins and minerals, be it vitamin C, be it zinc, be it iron, be it vitamin D. If there is any suggestion of allergy, you may need allergic medications, be it oral or inhalers. You refer to a pediatrician for evaluation if there are any danger signs, either clinically or on investigation. And very importantly, you avoid repeated antibiotic use for viral or minor infections. We don't even know whether this child was treated appropriately or inappropriately with repeated antibiotics for viral infections or some insignificant viral and bacterial infections that would have recovered on their own. So that is how I would manage a child who came to me with recurrent infections in office practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mukesh, for enlightening us about the approach to the infections. I think it was a very practical approach, and I was feeling very happy that you are also facing the same question. The most frequently asked question in our practice is how to boost immunity and how to prevent these diseases, where we spend about 10 minutes extra to convince our patient there is nothing called as a magic pill to boost your immunity in a day and to prevent you from COVID or from any such infections. So I request our panelists to come on to the dais now for the most interesting part of the discussion is the panel discussions. We have a few questions to start with, and let us start with Dr. Shailesh. And the question is, sir, about what is the role of nutritional supplements in children? Because you spoke about all the trace elements, the vitamins, the carbs, the proteins, the building blocks, etc. So what is the role of this supplementation, and what is the indication to start this supplementation? Is it really required? And if so, when?
Right. So my focus was on improving immunity naturally by giving balanced diet. So I did not mention supplements at all. But in children, there would be several situations, some of which were brought out by Dr. Jog and some by Dr. Sanklecha in their talks, that when are children deficient in macronutrients as well as micronutrients, and how that predisposes them to repeated infections. So a child that is underweight, a child that is not eating well, a child who has suffered several infections frequently, And because of those, he has not been eating well because of poor appetite, will need supplementation to uh, uh, make up for the deficiency from food. So there are several protein supplements available in the market, and liquid forms as well as powder forms. Most of them are palatable, but some children may have issues with them also. So depending on what they like, you could give them a liquid protein supplement or powder supplement, which can be added to milk and given. Now, the B complex vitamins, vitamin C, A, D, are all important for maintaining the normal immune functioning of the body. So, and these are available. And as I mentioned earlier, even in infancy, we start calcium supplements fairly early on by 6 weeks or 2 months of age. Vitamin D and multivitamins are started almost on the second or third day of life. The reason being that most of our mothers from the underprivileged sections of society are themselves deficient, and therefore, and they don't eat well, and therefore the stores in their newborns are less, and which would get depleted in the first few months of life, and therefore we supplement them until a year of age or 2 years of age. Iron is added by the third or fourth month of age also. So we've taken care of multivitamins, vitamin D and iron, and the macronutrients are taken care of by breast milk. Vitamin A supplementation is given by the government of India around the 9 months of age at the time of measles vaccination. In private practice, vitamin A is available in commercial form as ampules, which can be given orally or even injected in children who don't want to take orally. So we've taken care of those supplements. Now, the protein supplements, while some parents are very enthusiastic, so they want even a child with adequate weight, they feel the child is not good enough, the weight is not good enough, not eating enough. And so they want to pile on a child with extra protein supplements, which should be discouraged. We don't want those children to become obese. Yeah, we are looking at what is standard, what is optimum. So those who need those supplements, we prescribe those supplements for them for a given period of time. Once they've achieved the desired weight, we tell them to discontinue. And while we prescribe supplements, we also advise the parents and encourage the children to get the nutrition from a normal diet. Okay, a diet that is deficient, a diet that is inadequate can be improved by adding quantity as well as quality and variety. And that should be our aim, actually.
Thank you, sir. Now, you spoke about the trace elements, especially like copper and zinc. Now,
Yes.
how do you advise your patients, that is the parents, the quantity and the source of this naturally, these trace elements?
These trace elements are present in fruits, in green vegetables, in non-green vegetables, in meat, in poultry, eggs, and fish, and so on. Not present in adequate quantities in milk. In India, unfortunately, milk is considered a very important part of a child's diet. And, we pile them on with a liter or a liter and a half of milk every day, and we do not encourage them to eat food even when they're 2 years of age. I think that's a bad practice. Yes, that provides protein, that provides fats, but it does not provide these trace elements, which are, as Dr. Sanklecha said, are important even in very small quantities. So children should be encouraged to eat fruits, colored fruits, vegetables, legumes, grains, and wherever the family eats non-vegetarian food, they should eat a non-vegetarian diet. But as I said earlier, that even food sources may be deficient in these trace elements. So wherever we suspect a deficiency or expect a deficiency, it's a good idea to give supplements for a period of time. You prescribe a multivitamin preparation for maybe 6 weeks or 2 months or even longer, to ensure that these trace elements are provided to the child.
Dr. Pramod sir, we want your pearls of wisdom about this. How do you convince the parents or the children to eat this frequently, the fruits, so-called the 5 servings we say in adulthood, that should be the frequency. And I myself don't consume 5 servings of fruits per day. Now, how do you tackle this situation in your pediatric practice?
Yeah, first of all, as I showed you this food plate, which has all the colored vegetables, and the parents must eat in front of the children. That is what I tell them. Otherwise, the father is enjoying some 5-star conference on Saturday and Sunday with chicken tikka and other things, and the poor child is having rice and dal. So, that is the usual story. The point is that the parents have to have something very, very unique for their own child. Remember, every parent is different. Every child is different. And each child is understood best by the parent. So Dr. Jog sitting in his living room cannot advise for every individual. I have seen parents who spend hours after the child, just running after him, and the child is getting sadistic pleasure in troubling the father. So these examples are in plenty. I usually give an example of the tricolored flag of India. I tell that all the 3 colors of the flag have to be there in the plate. So the topmost is the orange. So orange and tomatoes and papayas and others. Then the middle one is the rice and curds and idli and others. The lower one is the green, that is the green vegetables. And the central one circle is the plate. And all the 23 lines in the circle are the fingers. So I tell that you have to eat all these things by taking them in the plate. Of course, there was one very smart child. He said, Dr. Jog, you are telling anything. The central spokes are nothing but Maggie noodles. And then he floored me totally. Anyway, so children are very clever, but every parent has to have his own ideas of convincing. And you have to show them that the growth is getting faltered. As Shailesh told and Mukesh also said about growth monitoring, the thing that we miss is the growth chart plotting. Okay, if the parents, they see that the line is flat, okay, after the attack of measles, the child has stopped growing, then they are convinced. A premature baby requires iron at an earlier age of 2 months. Vitamin D, it's only 40 units in a liter of mother's milk. So every baby requires vitamin D supplementation. Okay. So these are the points. These days, parents are literate. They understand the science. Even the older children, adolescent should know that after 12 years, his daily requirement of calories is 2000 calories. So he should take that much. So if you inform the parents and tell them scientifically, you have to spend little time, but if one doesn't have time, maybe if you have some nutrition counselor or a receptionist outside, can be taught little extra so that, additional 5 minutes can be set. And in the COVID times, people are sitting inside the house, no sun exposure. So vitamin deficiency is also rampant. And that's why one has to weigh all the situation. But devoted parents, individual approach, and making parents aware of deficiencies like iron deficiency, anemia. I always call the mothers and tell them not to apply anything in the eye like kajal, no lipstick, no nail paints. Otherwise, anemia cannot be diagnosed in an adolescent girl. So all these things are important, and we can have a separate program as to how to convince and how to make parents eat. I have seen so many parents, they will always prepare food items, but they are not very tasty. So the tender love and care is important. The mother is feeding. Now, jokingly, we see that when we are given by, our wife gives us some food, and we, eat it by making faces here and there. But when the same food is served by the air hostess on the aeroplane, we eat it even though our stomach is full. So, it also matters as to who is serving the food. That's in a lighter vein. But then remember that all these factors matter. So the color of the food, the taste of the food, the emotions of the server, the medical needs of the person. So everything has to be taken in a toto. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for reminding. We are missing the air hostess. We have not traveled for more than a year now. Now, let us come to another practical problem, sir. You said the role of vitamin C in the innate and humoral immunity is such a vital role. Now, how do you diagnose clinically the vitamin C deficiency in children, especially? And what is the supplementation you give without the labs? Basically, I want clinical approach. When do you suspect and how do you treat it?
See, many times vitamin C deficiency is present even in breastfed babies, okay? And particularly the ones who are on the cow's milk also. There are different types of milks which children are given. We have to just ask the history about the milk. And other thing is pain on the bones. Whenever the child gets bone pains. Many times the periosteum of the bone is, very important. And if there is pain, then that is called as, many times we used to call it as pseudo paralysis. Our examiners used to ask us what are the causes of pseudo paralysis, not a neurological, but congenital syphilis and scurvy and, some bony disorders and all. So there is bone pain. Then there is also bleeding of the gums, which is very well known, easy bruisability of the skin. These are some. There are very rare syndromes, which I will not like to mention here, but vitamin C basically is required for maintenance of health in a child. The requirement is very meager. I told you it's hardly 50 to 100 milligrams preventive dose. However, when the child is sick, then the requirement goes into grams, 1 gram, every 8 hours and others. So there have been studies on athletes. There was a study on almost 500 athletes, adolescents, and they were given vitamin C in mega doses, and they hardly ever got any infections. Repeated infections, as Dr. Mukesh showed in the case, vitamin C, as I told you, is required for the integrity of the respiratory epithelium, the lung epithelium. They are very much prone for getting pneumonias. So if a child is getting repeated respiratory infections, vitamin C has to be looked into. These days, children eat junk foods. Hardly any vitamin C in the, the popcorns and the uncle chips and others. No vitamin C, no fresh fruits. And that is why vitamin C has to be supplemented if you find that that particular child is getting repeated infections. Obese child, the requirements are more. Even vitamin D requirement in an obese child are double the requirements, because the vitamin D gets stored in the fats. So all these factors are there. So basically, from the clinical features related to the integrity of the skin, repeated respiratory infections, these are the important indicators. However, with the regular, I told you that one orange will give 77% requirement, which is usually fulfilled. So only parents should make it a point that they supplement regularly, so that there is no problem related to that. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the insights. And let's move on to Dr. Mukesh. I think he's eagerly waiting to answer our questions. So if a child falls sick repeatedly, do you want to estimate the vitamins and the micronutrient levels, or you supplement blindly, suspecting them clinically, sir? What is your approach in the same case example?
Yeah, so if you looked at the case that mother has come to me, you obviously look for clinical clues. Now, if you have a clinical clue that the child has rickets, you would like to confirm that diagnosis of rickets, because your treatment will be large doses of vitamin D. So you would not give it empirically without confirming the diagnosis of vitamin D deficiency. Similarly, if the child is pale, you would look at other clinical features. Suppose the child is pale and has a liver and spleen palpable, a large liver, large spleen, then obviously you would investigate whether this child is thalassemia, he has some other cause for his anemia. If it's an acute presentation, is he a leukemia? So you would look at not just the clinical manifestation of that vitamin deficiency, but what other and additional findings are there. Suppose I find a child with recurrent UTI, develops rickets. I'm worried, is this child going into chronic renal failure and he has renal rickets? So I would look at the primary finding of that vitamin deficiency, as well as I would look at any contributing features. So if it is the isolated finding of pallor in a child who's taking mainly milk in his diet and he has no liver, no spleen palpable, then I would give him iron empirically. But if there is some other finding which tells me that other differential diagnosis as the cause of his anemia is possible, then I would not treat him empirically. I would investigate first.
Thank you, sir. You showed us one original paper which described about zinc deficiency in almost 100% of the asthmatic children. Now, how do you take that to the clinical practice? Do you supplement blindly now all non-responders, asthmatic children, the zinc supplement?
Now let us look at what WHO recommends. If you look at the role of zinc in diarrhea, it is well established. But even over there, WHO says in the developing world, you must supplement every diarrhea with zinc. But in the developed world, where the zinc levels may not be deficient, there may not be a role of zinc. Now, the role of zinc in lower respiratory and upper respiratory infections is more controversial. If you look at severe acute pneumonias, Once again, WHO and even our basic textbooks of pediatrics and infectious disease say that if it's a severe pneumonia, you must replenish with zinc. But when it comes to mild respiratory infections, then I would be a little hesitant to use zinc empirically. So my role of zinc in pediatric infections is predominantly restricted to diarrhea, acute or recurrent, even persistent diarrhea, and severe lower respiratory tract infections like a community or a hospital acquired severe pneumonia.
Thank you, Dr. Mukesh. And sir, Dr. Pramod sir, your experience on over-enthusiastic parents and hypervitaminosis, what is the frequency you see in your practice, sir?
Yeah, there are parents who always demand, supplements and tonics and vitamins day in and day out. Of course, these are the usual IT sector parents. IT is not the information technology, but it is inquisitive and it troublesome parents. So they are the ones who usually come with the laptop with a half pant, which they bang on the table and they say, "Sir, you must give this to my child and that to my child." But usually, I tell them that the growth is normal. There are no signs of anemia. There are no signs of vitamin D deficiency, but the daily requirements have to be given. Okay, and you continue only this much. For example, after 4 months, we give to a full-term baby iron, vitamin D every baby right from birth till the baby passes up. That means the person goes up. Okay, so everybody requires all these, and in the definite daily requirements in that particular child. Requirements increase after illness. So a child coming to us for measles or whooping cough, after recovery, we supplement that. During recovery, particularly, we make it a point and give it to them. But then if the parents are over enthusiastic, then we will always tell them that, all these usually are obese parents with fat mothers. And I tell them that overeating and over supplementation has created this problem. So if you want to avoid this in your child, you better don't be over enthusiastic. We will give whatever is needed for the daily requirement. Okay. So again, as I said, it's an individual thing, and our practice is a mix of children who are from the lower class, children from the higher class, and you have to handle them individually. But then it's a tough time many times, to handle over enthusiastic parents. And even if we tell, they will watch on the TV and they will always supplement whatever they want, because we always make it a point and tell them that chubby child does not mean a healthy child. Okay, they say that the baby is chubby. I want my baby to be very chubby, but I tell them that it is not the right thing. Okay, the child should be as per the growth chart. The height, weight, head circumference, everything should be normal. That is a normal child. A chubby baby, many parents, they say that the head is large, their wrists are wide. They say, I ask them, this is vitamin D deficiency. No, then they will say, the father also has similar features. So I say, even father is having vitamin D deficiency right from childhood. So there are some hard nuts to crack. So that's difficult. But then in case, if you maintain the scientific rationale and tell them properly, but growth chart is very important, so that they should see that the child is growing properly, he is not becoming overweight. And in case if over enthusiastic parents find that the percentile is crossing 97th percentile on the growth chart, then they know that this is developing an obesity. Okay, so then of course we can convince them, see, this is not something proper, and see that the tiffin of your child. Now in the non-COVID times, I see so many children in the school with their tiffins having paneer malai matar and then gulab jamun and all those butter chicken. So many, every compartment has something very fatty. So you have to always tell them that I have prepared the pictures of tiffins for all the 7 days and say what is to be there in the first, second, and the third compartment. So you have to find out your own different ways of telling the parents and curtail their hyper enthusiasm.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And Dr. Mukesh, finally, I think about these multivitamins gummies are recommended in children, because a lot of these fashionable parents ask about this, that they can just chew and enjoy. But aren't they sugary? And the dental problems, how frequently do you encounter with such habits?
Absolutely. I think well said, because they have to be made palatable. So once you make them palatable, your sugar content goes up. So children tend to eat them a lot. But at the same time, it is an easier way of administering a vitamin to a stubborn child. There are some children who just don't drink syrup. So in that small group, if you are using these gummies, it's okay. But the downside is, number one, as you rightly said, the sugar content. And number two, they are obscenely expensive. So you would get 300 gummies for 330 gummies for 300 rupees. So to give 400 units of vitamin D or 1 day's quota of vitamins, that patient is paying almost 10 rupees. Or sometimes they will encourage them to have 2 gummies in a day. So I think it is a rather expensive 5-star way of administering vitamins and calcium and vitamin D. So by and large, I generally don't use those gummies.
Thank you, sir. And I think we have 914 now, 914. Jyotish has already appeared on the screen and is indirectly with his smile telling stop. So let us stop here. And I sincerely thanks on behalf of our API.
No, you can continue.
Yeah.
So we'll stop at 9:15. I think it's time. So I sincerely thank the speakers, the 3 speakers who patiently answered our questions. And though Dr. Pramod Jog had, I think he was supposed to cook today on Sunday, so that's why the vegetables were brought in 2-3 times by madam. So I think his time is also up. So he has to go. And I sincerely again thank all our faculty, the speakers especially, for patiently answering all our questions and enlightening our physicians for this very, very common problem which we see in our practice. And it's my pleasant duty to thank everyone on behalf of Dr. Jayant Panda. He has to go for his personal commitment in an urgent way. And he was the person who was a key anchor today. I sincerely thank him for his hosting the show today. And I sincerely thank Dr. Shashank Joshi, the ICP Dean, and Dr. Mangesh Tivaskar, our API Secretary, and Dr. Jailal, who was the chief guest today, and is president of IMA, as you know. And of course, ABBOT, represented by Dr. Ashok Nair, who is the MD, General Manager for ABBOT Primary Care, and our immediate past president, Dr. S. Arul Raj, and of course, our very enthusiastic president, Dr. Kamlesh Tiwari, sir, who's just taken over as a president. And of course, finally, the console, the back-end team, Dr. Diksha and team, who have put a lot of efforts. And of course, the Shaktiman of API DIAS is our Jyotishman. And over to you, Jyotish, for the rest of the program. Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Srini, for such a wonderfully concluding and the entire show. But before all that, I would like to start with you. There was such a wonderful moderations. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Pramod, Dr. Shailesh, and Dr. Mukesh. He has done an excellent job, right? So thank you so much for moderating it so well, Dr. Srini. And I would also like to thank Dr. Pramod. It's always pleasure to see you, Dr. Pramod, whether it's in Pune, along with my other team members, or right now in a digital way. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Gupta, for such a nicely orchestrating the entire scientific message. Dr. Mukesh, of course, I look forward to meet you in person. And thank you so much for your such a wonderful, nice deliberations. I would like to also thank the President, Dr. Kamlesh Tiwari, for giving us this opportunity, for collaborating with Associations of Physicians of India for this program known as API DIAS. Would like to also thank immediately our Technocrat President, Dr. S. Arul Raj, as is rightly mentioned by Dr. Mangesh Tivaskar, for giving us the opportunity. Would like to also thank my elder brother commander, Dr. Shashank Joshi, and the very close friend, Dr. Mangesh Tivaskar, for providing this opportunity to collaborate with us. A special thanks goes to Dr. J.A. Jayalal, the president of Indian Medical Association, for his valuable time, for giving us the message as a chief guest. I'm sure the entire participating delegates, which is today crossed over near about 1,500, have been benefited by this program. I would also like to thank today's host, as I always say that actually the person who hosted the event, and then he's the showstopper for the event and maintaining it so well, doing it so well, Dr. Jayant Panda, for his valuable contributions. I would also like to thank the entire team from Abbott, with our managing director, Mr. Ashok Nair, the team from medical, headed by Dr. Abhijit Pednekar, Diksha, and my colleague from the sales and marketing team, Manish and Preeti, and also Soumya, for all the all-round
support that has given to us. A special thanks to Good Factors team for the technical platform as well as the back-end collaborations. Do join us for the second sets of the API DIAS program on vitamin C capsule, that is we call as the immunity capsule, but this time from the perspective of physicians on prime time, prime show, API DIAS on next Saturday around 7 p.m. Do join us and tune us in the same time. Thank you so much.